Hello and welcome to the Well Played Podcast, home of everything you want to know and nothing that you need to. I am your host, Warren Curtis. This week we are talking about Indiana Jones, co-op games, and definitely not Pokemon. But first, let's take a brief moment to talk about what it is that we do here. We talk about games and news, leaks and rumors, and give our opinions on why these things matter. We will talk about gaming as an adult and as parents, and we will also talk about the games we are playing. You can find more from us on YouTube. The link is in the description of the audio show, and on Twitter by following Amarren Studios. That is AMARREN STUDIOS. We are available as an audio show on Spotify, Apple, Google, wherever you want to catch your pods. The link for that is in the video description of the show on YouTube and all that. Be sure to like us, rate us, ring that bell, because all of that helps everyone else find the show, and we want those comments. We want your feedback, so let's hear it. Just to remind everybody that you can find more from us on wellplayedpodcast.blogspot.com. There's new reviews that are up there. There's a couple of op-eds that are up there. We'll talk a bit about that kind of stuff. With all that said, let's get into it. This week's news. Xbox had a developer direct at the end of last week. I talked a bit about what was going to be there. Also, my thoughts on a couple of the things. Anyways, now that it's happened, let's talk about what happened there and what we know about it. So they showed off Avowed, which is from Obsidian. It's coming fall 2024. They showed off some quests and how choices matter, dialogue options, that kind of thing. They showed off some combat. They had a magic wand dual wielding with a flintlock pistol, which was pretty cool. Visually, I think it looks great. It's a lot different than kind of the concept stuff that we saw at the beginning, but now it's got its voice, it's got its feel, and it's got that kind of unique Obsidian feel. They did a deep dive after the developer direct as well, where they showed a lot more about the game. It looks really good. They also said that the area sizes in it are on par with about the largest worlds from or areas from the Outer Worlds. So we can use that as kind of a ruler. It's obviously a bigger game. They didn't talk about like campaign length or anything about that, but I think this is something that they're really looking at driving a little bit more long-term out of it. With that said, Hellblade 2 as well. I said the last time that they showed this, which was at the Game Awards, that they have to give us a release date. That I thought it was kind of absurd we didn't get a release date at the Game Awards. But I said on that show that they will do it at the spring developer direct, or the January developer direct that they are going to do, which they announced and then did afterwards. Because they're going to give us the release date on a few games, and that's what they've done, or at least release windows. So the release date for Hellblade 2 is May 21st, 2024. That's right. They can't drag it on. That's perfect. That's first quarter for Microsoft, which is what I said it needs to be, and it's coming. So we're good. They said it's about the same size as the first one in terms of length, and it's looking really good and really faithful to the original and how they're going on with it. They did some really cool stuff talking about how they worked with like the voices in her head and her mental health issues and things like that. And they actually talked with doctors and people at Cambridge University that are experts on these things, which is really cool. And then how they recorded the voices and layered all that looks really amazing, really cool, really fun time. Definitely going to be playing that one. And then here is the one more thing that I was hinting at last week: Visions of Mana, coming in summer 2024, which is it's a spinoff of the Final Fantasy series from Square Enix. This is what I heard the one more thing was. That and also the Final Fantasy VII remake, but I couldn't get more sources to corroborate. I only got the one source on these things, on the one, and one source on the other, and I couldn't really get any source to back up Visions of Mana, or Final Fantasy VII remake, which I still don't think is happening. I think that's bonkers. But anyways, that's a big get for Microsoft to have Visions of Mana launching day and date on Xbox, same as it's launching on PlayStation. It's an action, for those that aren't familiar with the Mana series. It's a action RPG. It's got a very kind of unique style that separates it from Final Fantasy, and it's a unique game. I think it's really cool looking. It's definitely something that I think more people need to play, and this is definitely showing that Xbox is taking Japan seriously, and I think this is the first indication, or maybe the second indication, of Japan taking Xbox seriously. They also showed Era History Untold, which is coming fall 2024. This is a 4X game, like a strategy game, with some twists on it. It's a very vibrant world. You have to kind of live with your choices. Live with the choices that you make as a player. You'll have encounters and things like that, kind of more random. And in most 4X games, you make a turn and then the other player takes a turn. The other player could be a person or a computer, kind of like chess. In this case, what happens is everybody makes their choices and then it resolves all those at the same time. So you can make choices in secret without the other side knowing, and vice versa. So you might take a decision, or might make a decision that doesn't work with what the decision of the other person made, and that can be interesting. You might choose to attack, they might choose to retreat, things like that. So I think it's a fun take on the genre. Looks interesting. That's coming to PC through Xbox Game Pass later on this year. And then I think the big one here, which we all talked about, the indie game of the year here, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, which is coming in 2024. It's a first-person Indiana Jones game from Machine Games. It looks amazing. They have they showcased a fair bit of gameplay, a lot of cinematic. It has an Indiana Jones feel to it. It has that vibe, and I think that's really good. The whip is, one of the most important tools to Indiana Jones in the movies, and there's no doubt that they have utilized that here. Puzzles and things like that as well are hidden in the game. Some of them are obviously essential to solve in order to progress the story, and some of them are just kind of there just cuz. And Machine Games is really comfortable with that. If you remember the Enigma stuff from Wolfenstein and the little how do I get that object thing and stuff like that, they're really good with puzzles. So this is kind of their comfort zone stuff. First person puzzles, that kind of thing. Really good. It's a young Harrison Ford. This game takes place in between Raiders and Temple of Doom. So it is in that era. Young Harrison Ford is being voiced by Troy Baker, which that got some controversy. I saw on the internet. There's 3 voice actors and or male voice actors that seem to get all the roles. My understanding is this was done on a blind audition. They went by the voices, and they went that guy, and they got Troy. Troy, you can't deny his talent. He may be a little boring here and there, but you can't deny his talent. He's very good at doing what he does. And he's immensely talented. And then the name, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. I knew I was on it when I got it because I was able to verify that Lucasfilm had actually registered this domain. They registered a lot of domains, but this one fit. There was some screenshots from the announcement there that you could see that reference circles and stuff like that. So this worked. That being said, it is, as far as Indiana Jones goes, it's a dumb name. Like Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. They didn't say, Indiana Jones and the Ark of the Covenant. It was Raiders of the Lost Ark, right? The Last Crusade, referencing, the final outing for Indy, and the obviously being part of the Crusades, going after the Holy Grail, that kind of thing. The Temple of Doom, stuff like that. This is the Great Circle. I think they could have come up with a better name, but it is what it is. Anyways, takeaways from the developer direct. These should all be coming, but the lack of a timeline on indie makes me think that if any of these games are going to slip, it's going to be it. And by that I mean, if any of them are going to drop out of the 2024 window. I think Hellblade 2 is pretty set in stone. Like they got a release date. My understanding is they've been in bug fixing for the last couple months. They probably were going to be comfortable doing the release date at the Game Awards, but they wanted to pair it up with others, which makes sense. The Avowed was supposed to be out already, so we're at the point now where I think it's pretty much going to be a where can we slide this in the fall thing. They probably don't want to pair it up against something else, something big. They want to give it its room to breathe, so they're probably just going to wait until more games are announced to see where they fit it in and give a better target. That being said, I have heard that Avowed is completely on target with all internal objectives. They do have a date in mind. So there's that. I don't have a whole lot of inside track on Era History Untold. They're not an Xbox game studio. This is just a partnership for this game. But my understanding is like the game has been in kind of early access insider play testing, and it's basically in the balancing stage where they're working on just balancing those little things and fixing the weird glitches that have been popping up as a result of that. So again, fall 2024 for that. I think that's about right. The indie thing is where it's vague. This is a big game and there's a lot of people involved in it, and it has to fire on all cylinders. And by that I mean it's because it's licensed, because it's going to get the attention that it's going to get. It needs to launch in a near perfect state. Obviously, there's going to be a bug here and a bug there. That happens with every game, but they just need to make sure that they got it polished and it works good. And so as not to damage any relationship with Lucasfilm or Disney over the usage of the rights. That is essentially where the importance is of that. A lot of people involved in that. I mean, id Software has been all over this thing. No surprise. We saw in the developer direct, there was a scene where there was a developer drawing quest lines, which you see there. It uses the node system, so you see a little box and then like a blue line, a red line, a green line, and then more boxes attached to those. That dictates like if you do this, these are the possible outcomes, and if you choose this outcome, you do this, and things like that. Those are quest lines. At the bottom of that screen, you can see that they're using id Tech as the engine. Again, no surprise. Wolfenstein's made entirely in id Tech. That is where Machine Games has got their vast amount of experience. You got to remember, Machine Games started off as Quake modders, and then they got hired in to make games, and obviously they decided to utilize the engine that they utilize or are familiar with the most, which is id Tech. So having id Software involved in that makes a whole lot of sense. They know a lot about how to balance that engine and how to tweak it and get the things out of it that they need, and as well as just slamming production out, they're familiar with it, so they're good people to bring on board. Bethesda has been involved in that process as well. They're less familiar with id Tech, but they are good with QA and things like that. And 343 Industries has been involved in that. My understanding is 343 helped do a lot of the shading and lighting and that kind of stuff. So there we go. As to say, there's a lot kind of riding on it. It needs to perform. So I think if anything's going to slip, it'll be that. And here we are. We're looking at potentially 6 to 8 months, let's say, away from that game coming out. Right? Like if it's releasing fall, technically it could release up to December, really. But if it's releasing in that fall window, well, even up to 10 months, really, away, this is a crucial point in any game's development then, right? This is where they're doing serious amounts of QA. And if they encounter that, oh my geez, big bug thing that could take them weeks to solve, that could be a problem. So narrowing down a date right now, slim chances. I think the next Xbox show, which pardon me, the next Xbox show, which should be in around the Summer Game Fest time, because we don't do E3 anymore, it's been killed. I think that'll have the dates of all these games. at it, and then obviously a wider look as at to what's to come. We'll probably see, Fable and things like that there. Another big takeaway here is this is showing, and this is important because Xbox is serious about first party, which is something they've been coming under fire with for a very long time. They had a really dry 2022, and 2023 heated up a little bit, and then now we're into 2024, and we got to keep that fire going on first party games. This is showing that they're serious about that, even when we're talking about two games that are really a partnership. There's an agreement between them and Square Enix to release Visions of Mana, but there is a partnership here with Era History Untold and how that's being developed primarily for the Xbox ecosystem, even though it is a PC game. It's showing first party commitments. They're serious about supporting the creator's vision, which I think is immensely important with games to have a unique feel. There's lots of games out there that are built in a factory and they don't really have a cohesive vision. They just come out generic and you play them and they're all right. These games all have a soul feel to them. And by that, I mean, when you're looking at them and playing them, you get that vibe. You get that there's a heart here. There's a vision. There's a passion about that. And I think that's very important to have to make your games feel unique and make them stand out from others. They're serious about Game Pass. 4 out of 5 of these games are launching directly into the service, and they're serious about Japan. Getting this partnership with Square Enix, or this agreement with Square Enix, to put Visions of Mana there, and to launch into a very big Japanese title is going to give them more reason in Japan to flourish. And I think that's evidence of the executive team that is working with Xbox Japan to make that go, which I believe is former Sony Japan executives. So there we go. So a little bit of puddle news as a result of this, though, is Indiana Jones had a lot of people going first person, really? Comments online about it being first person instead of third person were rampant. And I can see that to a point. Like most games of this genre, Tomb Raider, Uncharted, they're third person. And as I say, I get that to a point. With licensed games, you want to see the character. You're paying for this license fee, like not as a player, but as a developer. You're paying this license fee to play as Indiana Jones or whatever the license is, Darth Vader, you name it. You want to see that. I think this does this differently. I don't want to see Indiana Jones. I want to be Indiana Jones. Every boy wants to be Indiana Jones. When I grow up. So I think there's a different aspect to it there. They have shown that during moments of Indiana Jones, like when you're climbing a ladder or what have you, the camera will pull away and you'll go into a third person. You'll see the character do his thing, which is good because I think there's issues there with perspective and trying to solve where you go and what you do, which is good. But, let's trust the process here. Machine Games knows first person very well. They know big cinematic games very well. I've been actually playing through Wolfenstein again recently just because I feel like it, and watching that Indiana Jones trailer has made me kind of vibe for some Machine Games stuff. And you see BJ Blazkowicz so much in that game. I'm not worried about seeing Indy and experiencing that. The only real viable reason that I see is a lot of people are saying, well, first person gives me motion sickness. And I get that. I do. And that sucks. But on the other hand, people experience that from different things all sorts of times. I got vertigo in Horizon Forbidden West. So, I was on a mountain. I can't remember the exact scene, but I looked over the edge of this mountain in third person and I saw the character and I saw the width of the ledge that I was on. And then I saw the bottom and I was like, ooh, and I went, whoa. Right. It happens, right? Unfortunately, I think that that is the only real legitimate excuse here. Otherwise, this is just puddle news. Um, Tomb Raider and Uncharted wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Indiana Jones. Those games are Indiana Jones games before there was Indiana Jones games, like real Indiana Jones games. So there it is. And I don't see Machine Games, who, as I said, are experts in first person. They're experts in big cinematic games. Why would they deviate from that with an IP as important as Indiana Jones? This is a huge important thing. Trust the process. Um, some Nintendo rumors are here as well. Moving on, I have a couple sources that have been able to corroborate here, saying that the coming Nintendo Direct, which hasn't been announced yet, but they usually do one in February or so. My guess is going to be mid-February, close to the release of that Mario versus Donkey Kong game. Probably like the 16th ish, somewhere in there. It will have some cool content announced at this. Fire Emblem 4 remake releasing in May. I've talked about this before. The It's been done for a while. I think it was done or like pretty much close to done about a year ago, and it's been shelved since then. And Nintendo does that with games all the time. They did it with Pikmin 2. Or sorry, not Pikmin 2, Pikmin 3. They shelved it until there was a hole in their schedule and then went, all right, here it goes. So makes sense. Donkey Kong Country getting a new game for the 30th anniversary. It's time, and we've heard that that's being worked on by the Mario team. Or sorry, not the Mario team. Oh, who are they now? They're out of Texas. They did Tropical Freeze. I'll figure that out in a sec. And then Metroid Prime 2 remastered. That's not a surprise. They did Metroid Prime remake last year as a shadow drop, if I'm not mistaken. Metroid Prime 2 remastered it's coming. It's not as deep as obviously a remake. Controls are updated and it's been scaled a bit, utilizing the Switch to do that. And this is all part of a timeline that we've been talking about before. Not part of that show, but Metroid Prime 3 is being done as well, same team. And then Metroid Prime 4, which should be coming holiday. Now, this is the trick. This is nailing it down. This is 5 years ago, actually, like yesterday. 5 years ago this week, Metroid Prime 4 was rebooted development. And why did that happen? New hardware, right? There's new hardware in the pipeline. Metroid Prime 4 is going to take advantage of that. So Metroid Prime 4 is going to launch in the launch window of the Switch 2. We need to nail down that Switch 2 date, but my guesses are it's going to launch later on this year, so we will see. I don't expect Switch 2 to be part of this show. I expect them to do another show May, June, and do the Switch 2 there. Reason is that Princess Peach Showtime game needs to get out of the way before I think they start talking about what's coming next for Nintendo. I think they only have 4 games on the docket right now, and once they're done, what are they doing? And they're all kind of, I don't want to say bottom of the barrel, but they are all lower key games, right? Mario versus Donkey Kong, essentially a remake. Princess Peach Showtime, right? Little things like that, just not quite there. More Nintendo rumors or leaks that I've been able to corroborate here. Zelda Oracle Games getting a remake from Grezzo. That's the studio that did the Link's Awakening remake, which was just amazing. This makes sense. They have the engine, they got the tools, and the Oracle games are kind of locked away on that era. So there's that. And Famicom Detective Club is coming back. Nintendo Detective Club, 5 high school girls, something like that, working on cases. Be interesting. There's more, but I haven't been able to confirm all of them. I don't really want to start putting a couple things out there because I haven't been able to confirm them, but there is other things. And And as I say, that Switch 2 needs to get out of the way before some of those things make sense, and or it needs to be announced, I guess, before some of those things make sense. And I really don't see that happening in this February direct. I see them doing another show closer to Summer Game Fest again, and doing that there, and having a quick ramp up to launch, like 2-3 months, and then boom, it's out. You know, we'll have to see. Nintendo marches to the beat of their own drum. There's a hint there as well about one of the games that I was not talking about, drumming. Anyways, and they do their own thing, and they can get away with it, and that's fine. But looking at a business and how a business needs to operate, they need to do something, and that something is going to be the Switch 2. Like that's the next thing coming for them. We all know it. It's just a matter of when, and it's got to be this year. It's got to be. It's a Palworld after all, I guess, eh? Palworld, the game also known as Pokemon with Guns, has taken the gaming world by storm with very good numbers for a paid game. They are over $7 million in sales. I got these numbers about an hour ago. And they're the second highest played game on Steam ever at 2,018,905 concurrent players. That is just behind PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, which at the time was a paid game. So this is really big. PUBG had like 3 million and change, like 3,001,000 something. So these numbers are great for a game really coming out of nowhere. New roadmap detailing plans and features such as crossplay and PvP and others has been released. I think that was late yesterday. The news about this game is just swirling and constant and so in your face. It obviously took the developer by surprise. They are dealing with bottlenecks to do with connectivity and things like that right now. And I think once they get those bottlenecks out of the way, that's when they're going to start visiting expansion and these features and things like that. If anything, this shows that the demand for a Pokemon-like, even though this is a survival game at its core, it's a Pokemon-like. And if anything, it shows that there's demand for that, and that the Pokemon Company and that needs to get a little bit more. Game Freak needs to get a little bit more on the ball there. That being said, the Pokemon Company has said it'll investigate any potential copyright infringement from this game. Now, they released a statement saying that. Lawyers don't release statements saying we're looking into it. Lawyers just serve lawsuits. The internet's kind of split on where this is going to be, but there's been a few lawyers that I've discussed this with on social, and their vibe is, one of them is a trademark lawyer. Their vibe is none of these things really come close to infringement. They have to show a blatant, like, willful copyright violation, and just having cute, cuddly animals isn't really that kind of thing. So we'll have to see. Nintendo has already issued a cease and desist to a modder who created a Pokemon game or a Pokemon mod for the game. Like, the mod came out Saturday. The cease and desist was issued first thing Monday morning. So, like, they're all over this. I think they would have been all over this to the company monetizing it too, if they felt they had any legs to stand on. Not going to talk about that. Sorry, I just got a notification. I'm like, no. Palworld is in early access still, and as such, it's not allowed on the PlayStation system. PlayStation doesn't allow early access. So it's only available on Steam and Xbox. The developer has said that if the demand's there, they will look into developing a fork for it for PlayStation, but then that issues another user base that they have to worry about for crossplay and things like that. So I'm not 100% sure about that. And then just let me have a quick sip here. Because Microsoft, this morning, this was about 2 hours ago, I guess. Microsoft has laid off nearly 1,900 or approximately 1,900 employees from its gaming wing, including personnel from Activision Blizzard King, ZeniMax, and Xbox Game Studios. This happened just as I was starting up the show today, so details on specific personnel affected are still scant. My understanding is employees aren't necessarily going to find out, like they're having meetings through the day, and then today's a holiday in some spots, so it'll actually be happening into the beginning of next week. Blizzard exec Mike Ybarra has said he's leaving the company, which is interesting because he said you'd have to drag him out kicking and screaming like 2 months ago. So we'll see. He probably got a bit of a payday there, but we'll see. As a result, Blizzard's previously announced survival game Project Odyssey has been canned. Matt Booty has said that affected personnel from that team will be transitioned, or the remaining ones, I guess, will be transitioned. However, that game is no longer coming. In an internal memo with staff, Xbox chief Phil Spencer said that the teams at Xbox have, and I quote, identified areas of overlap and ensured that we're all aligned on the best opportunities for growth, close quote. And as a result, end quote, we have made the painful decision to reduce the size of our gaming workforce by approximately 1,900 roles out of the 22,000 people on our team, end quote. Although the majority of these layoffs appear to be the result of eliminating redundancies that occurred during the acquisition of Activision Blizzard King, the gaming industry continues to reel in over commitments and poor leadership decisions that took place during the COVID-19 pandemic by laying off employees who took no part in the poorly executed decision-making processes of the time. In 2023, over 7,000 people were laid off in the gaming industry, whereas so far, less than 1 month into 2024, the industry has laid off approximately 5,900 people, about 60% of the total of the entirety of last year. Notably, companies continue to experience record profits and revenues while the industry is still contracting from overgrowth experienced a couple of years ago. And this is a trend. Like, there's an earnings call coming, I think next week for Microsoft, and this is them getting ahead of probably less than ideal earnings, saying, hey, look, we're dealing with it. 1,900 people are gone. Last year they did 10,000 people, not at Xbox, but across the whole Microsoft division. And I get there's going to be redundancies in any merger and acquisition. And, you know, that's to be expected. But these people, by and large, these people at the worker level, you know, outside of the C-suite, outside of the nice, cushy offices, these people haven't made a decision that that they're being punished for. And yet they're being punished for these decisions. And that's weird. That's bad. The industry continues to, wonder why it's hard to get talented people. And yet instead of record retention, we're talking record profits and layoffs. That's the problem. Notably, workers at Xbox Game Studios, notably ZeniMax, have been organizing as of late, and it is no surprise that they will continue to do so. Here we are. This is where this work leads to. You lay off a bunch of people, you treat them poorly, they're going to unionize. ZeniMax has been very quick to unionize. I think other studios are going to follow suit. Somewhat related, Call of Duty developer Sledgehammer Games has gone back to remote work. We previously reported that when it was still independent, all ABK studios were pushed back to return to the office, even after commitments were made that the employees wouldn't have to. Employees had moved into more affordable areas, sold houses, sold cars, adjusted their lifestyles, and then were told they had to get back to the office or lose their job. Now, via Insider Gaming, we are hearing that Sledgehammer Games has transitioned to remote work for its California office, while the studio looks for a smaller office space in the area. It is expected that the studio will be remote until the end of 2024. Some employees, speaking with sources, have called the move to go remote a slap in the face, with ABK Workers Alliance issuing a statement that says the company moving the Sledgehammer team to a temporary remote working environment is an indication that they have the ability to grant remote work to the QA employees who have requested it due to disability, distance, or other factors, but are choosing not to. And that's a very good point. When it works for you but doesn't work for me, that's a problem, right? The old saying goes, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So if the company feels that being remote is good so they can find a different office, why can't employees be remote? It's good enough for there, right? Um, this comes at an interesting time. Sledgehammer Games just came off of shipping the poorly received Modern Warfare 3 entry in the Call of Duty series. Sledgehammer's next at bat in Call of Duty has been confirmed for 2027. That was confirmed in a internal town hall meeting that was held last week. Call of Duty 2024 is said to be Call of Duty Gulf War from Treyarch, with the studio also pulling double duty and handling the 2025 entry codenamed Saturn, which is said to be a semi-futuristic sequel to Black Ops 2. Infinity Ward is slated to be handling Call of Duty 2026, which is understood to be in the Modern Warfare universe. And unsurprisingly as well, Activision Blizzard King workers are actively organizing, with portions of the organization in the collective bargaining phase already. Again, I don't know really what else needs to be said about this. This industry is producing amazing games, amazing content, delivering huge products, huge experiences, and we're laying off the people that are making that possible. And that's not sustainable. The spiking like this, we need to find this balance. We need to find this trajectory of continued growth that's manageable and fair for the company, fair for the shareholders, fair for the employees. All right, so that is it with the news. I do want to move on to a new thing, little new thing I want to do called the Well Played Critic Prediction. This is a game where I am going to try to guess what score a game is going to get according to OpenCritic, and we will see at the end of the quarter how right or wrong I am. I play this game with another group on Discord, so I'm going to kind of use the same rules set, just tweaked a little bit because I'm not going up against another person. And the same games will be utilized from that. So all my entries for this one were actually locked in last Thursday, on like January 18th, when we did that one. So let's see how this goes. I'm going to post this content later on the Well Played podcast. On wellplayedpodcast.blogspot.com and to the Discord. So feel free to play along as well. Do in the comments, whatever you want. This is going to be kind of fun. So let's get that going. We're going to transition over there. The Well Played Critic Predictions for the first quarter 2021. So kind of as I said here, I just need to make this a little bit bigger here so I can see that. So there's 12 games coming in the quarter. Guesses have to be made prior to the first game review coming out. There is 5 points for a perfect guess. And for every point away from a perfect guess, I lose 1 point. So the maximum amount of points something's worth is 5. And then, for example, if the score's 85, let's say, but my guess was 87, I lose 2 points off of that 5. So that's 3 points, right? And that works all the way down to 1. If I'm outside of 5 points in either direction, no points. So this will be kind of fun. So the first game, helps if I hit the right button, eh? First game up for grabs here is Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. Yeah. This comes from RGG Studio. It's published by Sega. It comes out January 26th, which is at the beginning of the week. Today's 24th. Yeah, that's Sunday. So it comes out Monday. It's Japan release date. Platforms, Xbox Series X, S, PS5, PS4, Windows, PC, and Steam. This is the story of Ichiban Kasuga, who's that gentleman with the lovely poofy hair, and Kazuma Kiryu. They go to Hawaii on this one. It is done in the RPG style that they did Like a Dragon. 7, I guess. It was called Yakuza 7 Like a Dragon. It's called Like a Dragon. So Like a Dragon 7. It's done in that RPG style, so turn-based combat, things like that. I kind of based my guesses off of where previous titles, or I felt where previous titles have been and how this is trending. And I think it's going to get an 87. Um, I probably going to be a little low on that, to be honest, but we'll see how it goes. The next game is Tekken 8, and this comes out January 25th, which is tomorrow. So today ish. I think it's dropping today in North America, 25th in Japan. Um, Bandai Namco is the developer and the publisher of this game, and it comes out for the Xbox Series X and S, PS5, and on Steam. A fighting game, obviously, it looks fantastic. I think it's going to be compared largely to last year's Street Fighter 6, which scored very well. So it depends on what it does better or worse, obviously, than Street Fighter. Um, I am not a Tekken. When it comes to fighting games, my fighting games are more Mortal Kombat. I did do a little bit of Dead or Alive, not my thing. And I have done Street Fighter and Tekken before, but they're not really my specialty, I guess would be the best words there. Tekken 8, I think we'll get an 84. So we will see how that goes. I think that might be a little low as well, but I think that's high for a fighting game, to be honest. Next on the list, Persona 3 Reload. It's this is a re-release of the PSP game. It's being developed by P Studio for Sega Atlas. It releases February 2nd for the Xbox Series XS, Xbox One, PS5, PS4, Windows, PC, and Steam. Again, this is going to be reviewed largely by fans of the series. This is kind of a deep cut for a lot of people. A lot of people haven't played this game because it's been locked away where it was. And now we're going to see where it comes out now and how that is. I think because of the fans of the series being where they are and kind of the legacy behind it, I think it's going to score high and get an 88. Alrighty, got to remember, like an 88, that's almost a 9 out of 10. That, like, to me, a 9 out of 10 is a game you can't miss. An 8 out of 10 is a game that you probably shouldn't miss playing. 9 out of 10 is you can't miss. A 10 out of 10 is a unicorn, right? A 10 out of 10 is a game that everybody, including non-gamers, should experience because it's so important as an art. So I think 88, right in there. Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League. This is coming from Rocksteady, who did all the Arkham games, published by WB Games. Releases hopefully February 2nd, 2024. This is its second or third push. Coming out on the Xbox Series X and S, PS5, Steam, and the Epic Games Store. It's got some live servicey elements to it. It's been... there's some neat things and there's some not so neat things. I don't think it's going to do all that well in the grand scheme of things, but I think it'll get a fair score. Most reviewers sitting there at a 65. I think that's about fair. A 6 to a 7 out of 10 is where I think it's going to be. So 65, right there in the middle. Helldivers 2. This is the PlayStation 5 quasi-exclusive to Windows PC. It's coming from Arrowhead Game Studios, published by Sony Computer Entertainment. Comes out February 8th, 2024. Fans of this game are fans of Helldivers are fans of Helldivers. That's where they are. There's a humor, there's a vibe, kind of vibe check you have to pass to play the game, and it's a squad based game, so it is what it is. I think it's kind of niche, but I think it's going to review well amongst the fans that play it. I think our bigger outlets are going to pass it off to the first-person shooter guys, or it's not a first person, but you know what I mean. They're going to pass it off to the shooter guys to review and see where it goes. And I think it's going to get mid scores at 72. All right, next up is Mario vs. Donkey Kong. This is developed and published by Nintendo, coming February 16th, 2024 to the Nintendo Switch. Again, this is like it's a remake, right? So it is kind of a known quantity, but it's a 2D kind of different take on a Mario game with Mario versus Donkey Kong. I think there's going to be some interesting aspects to it. There's some interesting ideas, right? It's been locked away and now they're remaking it. Be interesting to see where it goes. But that being said, I think it's still going to be a 7 to 8 out of 10. So 75. Moving on, just a quick drink here. Skull and Bones, if it comes. This game was supposed to come out like 10 times now. It's developed by Ubisoft Singapore, published by Ubisoft. Release date is February 16th, 2024, hopefully. Coming to the PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, Windows PC, and Amazon Luna. Because why not? Little inside baseball here. This game would have been canceled already if it wasn't for the agreement with the government of Singapore. The government of Singapore invested money into it. This game has to basically come out, or Ubisoft has to pay that money back to the government with like interesting gains. It's part of an economy driven boost that was provided by the government. I kind of see that, and this game comes out of there's these huge penalties to pay. I think it would have been canceled before it even went to playtesting. And as a game that was basically like, hey, you know that cool boat sequence or pirate ship sequence that was in Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag? What if we made that an entire game? It was a pretty simple concept. You just take that mode, cut everything around it out, slap it into a new game, and throw some new characters on it. Call it that. Like, I know it's more than that, but that's the concept. And instead, they did this. I don't think it's going to do well at all, to be honest. And I don't think it's going to review well based off of what I've seen in the play testing and stuff like that. I think 60 is probably high, but let's see. There could be people that go, hey, this is better than I thought, right? But 60, yeah. There we go. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. This is developed by Square Enix's Creative Business Unit 1. Published by Square Enix. Release date is February 29th, 2024, and it's coming to the PlayStation 5. There's no two ways to cut it. This is either going to be an absolutely amazing door crasher of a game, or it's going to fall flat on its face. There's no mid when it comes to a Final Fantasy game. Pardon me. The thing here, and the thing my school thought is there was a lot of disappointment around Final Fantasy 16. The game reviewed well. It plays well. It's a fun game. But it's an action RPG, not a turn-based RPG, not a traditional Final Fantasy game in that aspect. This is. And I think because of that, it's going to score higher with the Final Fantasy fan club. And I think we're going to be 86 is probably at the lower end of that spectrum. I honestly think 89, 90, but I'm hedging a little bit just in case there's performance issues or something weird, because it is Square Enix and they do weird all the time. So we shall see. Alone in the Dark. This comes from Pieces Interactive. It's published by THQ Nordic, and it's coming March 20th, 2024 to the PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, and Windows PC. This has got, what's his name in it from Stranger Things? Sheriff or deputy, whatever his name is. God, I can't remember that. He was also that Santa in the Violent Night movie. Anyways, and he was like the red guy in Black. The Marvel thing. My brain is not firing on all eight when it comes to this guy today. Anyways, it's got him in it, some other people that I noticed in the trailers. I think it'll be an okay game. I don't think it's going to be the door crasher. I don't think it's going to fall flat. I think it's just going to be mid, and that is fine. People like that. It is kind of a detective whodunit survival thing. 72, right? That's probably high. ish. I don't know. We'll see. If there's nothing technically wrong with it, it should be okay. We'll see. Dragon's Dogma 2. This is coming from Capcom, published by Capcom, March 22nd, 2024, to the PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, and Steam. This is a hugely well received, or in a hugely well received series. A lot of people have heard of Dragon's Dogma, but there are huge fans of it. And I think because of that, because of the exposure that it's getting, and that, I think it's going to score really well. 87. Right? Got to remember, 87, like mid 80s. That's a very good game. Um, so I think 87. It could go higher than that, but 87 is good. Princess Peach Showtime, coming from Nintendo for Nintendo. Release date's March 22nd, 2024, and the platform is obviously the Nintendo Switch. Uh, yeah, I I don't know. This is in a weird spot. It's either going to be really fun and good, or it's going to be like, wow, they cobbled this together last minute. Um, yeah, a lot of thoughts on this one. Honestly, I don't know where or how uh, a lot of people are going to land on it. It's kind of tricky. I want to believe it's going to be good. Um, and maybe it should be. I think because of that, like an 8 out of 10 is probably about right. So I went with straight up with that, and I'm saying 80. So that's my guess. I really hope it goes higher than that, but 80. Let's be realistic, right? Rise of the Ronin. I believe this is the last one. This is from Team Ninja, published by Sony Interactive Entertainment, coming March 22nd, 2024, to the PlayStation 5. Um, Honestly, I think this game looks phenomenal. I just don't know how it's going to score in the West. But I think there's enough fans of this kind of genre. There's enough demand of it. I think it'll be received well by the fans. Where it scores is kind of a different thing, but I think we're looking good, and I think 82. So again, that's still pretty good in the score area, and that is it for the prediction. So we'll just bounce back over here to that, and I am just going to find my toolbar and get rid of that for now. All right, sorry, I had that show running in the background. That was a slideshow for PowerPoint. The easiest way to do that, and of course, it just took up the whole screen. Um, so yeah, that let's see how that scores. We will revisit that after all those games launch, and what I'm going to do is I'm not going to do it progressively as the quarter goes on. We'll revisit that like after that. Uh, what I'll do is I'll wait for the scores to be compiled by the team that's doing it on the other Discord, and I'll utilize that so everything's on par, everything's the same. Putting in, putting out, and we'll see where we are on that. I think it'll be kind of fun. All right, a couple things I did want to discuss actually here. Uh, First and foremost is something that I have touched on it a few times in the past, especially when it comes to preservation of games, and this past week, a gentleman named Philippe Tremblay, who is the director of subscriptions at Ubisoft, made some comments that I found interesting, and I wanted to talk about that. Now, I did do an op-ed on this over at the Well Played podcast.blogspot.com that you can read there. Follow us on Facebook. I link all my op-eds, all my stories, all my episodes, everything there. So follow us on Facebook, Amarren Studios on Facebook, and you can find access to all those things through that. What did Philippe Tremblay say? Philippe Tremblay said that gamers, and this is an interview with GameIndustry.biz, said that gamers need to get comfortable with not owning your games. And I think we need to have a talk about that. He goes on to reference like television shows, movies, and music, which have largely transitioned from physical media to digital media, and as we know, are heavily dominated by subscription services, Spotify, Netflix, Disney Plus, that kind of thing. And he's using that as evidence that the consumer is used to this method of distribution and that we need to be accustomed to it when it comes to games. Yeah, no. Um, that's kind of where he lost me there. And like let's be honest. I know he's talking about subscriptions here largely, but there's a greater, wider focus point here that we need to handle, and that is what is ownership, right? So the problem isn't that the content isn't a subscription service. The problem is that owning content outright just isn't fucking possible. And that's where the entire concept of digital ownership needs to change. And in order for subscriptions to work, and in order for that business model to work, the whole thing needs to change. Okay. As consumers, we need to be able to make a purchase of content and then be able to access that content whenever we want down the line. This is completely different than that of a distribution model such as Game Pass, which is what subscriptions are. For a monthly fee, it allows us access to a curated library. That's different, right? So to kind of figure out what needs to change, we need to kind of define what it means to own content and then establish the difference between a distribution model and a sales model. So I'm going to create an example here. This example, we're going to call it Shooty Game 2, and it's published by Gaming Software Incorporated. And Gaming Software Incorporated has the rights, has distribution and sales rights worldwide. We're going to use this example to illustrate the differences between models and ownership rights as they sit now and how they need to evolve in order to reflect the changing landscape around us. So let's talk about Shooty Game 2. What is it? It's an action-based first-person shooter set in the realistic future with archived footage and music from real-world sources. It has a cast of characters that are played by actors that are represented by unions. It's made by a studio that has no union, and it's distributed worldwide by Gaming Software Incorporated on PlayStation, Xbox, and PC in both digital and physical formats. It has online multiplayer, which has become a significant part of its usage base, and a separate kind of offline campaign to enjoy as well. Single player stories. It has microtransactions and DLC that are available for purchase through the in-game storefront. To own content, we need to explicitly purchase that content. That makes sense, right? You go, I want to buy this can of pop. And if the camera's messing with it, we want to buy that. I go to the store and go, buy that, give them money, and they give it to me. So to do that with a game, we either got to go to a storefront, digital, physical, doesn't matter, and exchange money for that piece of content. That's how that works. So let's just run an example. I log on to my Xbox and I go to the store on the dashboard and I search for Shooty Game 2. And when I find Shooty Game 2, I click on it, I click buy now, and the money escapes my wallet, goes into theirs, and I get the game. That's ownership, right? Alternatively, I could go to Best Buy, Walmart, EB, GameStop, whatever you want to call them, and I can buy that game off the shelf, behind the counter, wherever it is, in the little vault thing that the Walmart people have the key for, and pay money to the store in exchange for that box that has a disc on it. That disc may or may not have the game. That's kind of not really important in this sense, but it could have the download to the game or a key to the game, access to it, and that's all fine and dandy. And now I own the game. When it comes to subscriptions, let's say Gamer Software has decided that they're going to partner with Microsoft and include the game in Xbox Game Pass. Subscribers are then able to download and play the Shooty Game 2 at no additional charge. It's included in their monthly fee. Microtransactions, DLC, and stuff like that, let's say that's all extra. All right, so that's their incentive. They put it on there, people get hooked on the game, go, you know what, I'll buy that Ariana Grande skin and play as her for a little while, and boom, there you go. I guess it can't be her because she's signed to Fortnite, so Olivia Rodrigo. There we go. You can play as Oro in Shooty Game 2. Um, anyways, that agreement, it doesn't really matter how that transpires, but let's say Xbox gives a lump sum to Gamer Software, or maybe it's detailed based off of hours played or something like that, but money's exchanging hands. That's the important part of this, because that makes Xbox now the distributor of the game, right? And that agreement's changed. Now my agreement with them hasn't changed, right? My agreement's still I'm paying for the service, and I'm not paying for games when I'm paying for Game Pass. I'm paying for a service that provides me a library of games. That can be evolving, right? As long as that's explicitly said, that's fine, right? Um, Now let's say that agreement ends, right? With Game Pass. Gamer Software decides they're not going to renegotiate or whatever it is. That's fine. The game leaves its service. It's understandable because that is what the agreement's about, right? A revolving door. Not every game's going to stay forever, right? That it is. But maybe I'm fine as a consumer because I got my time out of it. Or maybe I go, hey, you know what? That was good. I am now going to buy that, right? As it sits now, Shooty Game 2 could be delisted for a store. And this is as the rules are right now. It could be delisted because, let's say, it contains archive footage, as I said, that belongs to a license holder, and that license itself has lapsed. So now they can't sell the game without renegotiating that license. That's happened with one of the Metal Gears recently, and I believe that happened with not Control, Remedy Games. This is going to bug me. What they make, Remedy. It's right there. It's on the tip of my tongue. Quantum Break. It happened with Quantum Break. So they had to delist it from the store and stop selling it for a brief period of time because they um, they didn't have the license to some of the content to it, but they fixed it and put it back in. Right, same thing with Metal Gear. They fixed it, put it back in, and that's fine if you want to stop selling it, but it's not a valid reason to stop other people from playing it. Like if you already own it, you own it, right? Um, my portion of the license fee was paid when I paid for the game. You can't take that away from me, right? And that this is where some of the disagreements are working. Um, Another reason why a game might be limited is online functionality. For example, may cease due to the company shutting down servers, and that could be because of lack of foot traffic or high costs associated with it based off of users or whatever it is. And that's fine and understandable, kind of within a reason. Games that are made physically, they're made in runs, right? So like when we're talking about preservation and games always being available, they're made in runs, and that's to say that a run is basically the disc manufacturer goes, we're going to make 500,000 of these or whatever it is, based off of projections from the publisher, right? And they go and they make so many, and then more runs can be ordered if demand is there for it. But at some point, it will become unviable to, or not viable to make more physical versions of a game over the amount of projected sales, right? So if they're only going to ship a little thing here, limited run games isn't going to do a physical run of a game coming up for Xbox because they only anticipate selling about less than 1,500 units. They need to break about 2,500 units in order to break even on the cost associated with doing a physical run. That's totally understandable. I don't expect a company to lose money to entertain me, right? So that is totally understandable. Where all this becomes not understandable is, and this is kind of where publishers cross the line, and this happens, is when games, and Ubisoft has done this, is when games that have no actual need for online functionality, maybe like a leaderboard or something, are not only removed from sale in any format, but are shut down from operating altogether. the game is updated with a kill code, and it basically just shuts down the ability to ever play the game. And that's criminal as far as I'm concerned. And that's explicitly what needs to change. And it can't just be changed in policy or kind of expectations. It needs to be changed in like law, and copyright law. We got to hit them where it hurts on this one, right? So Gamer Software has decided, here's an example, that in order to increase demand for the upcoming Shooty Game 3, they're going to completely lock up Shooty Game 2. They're not going to let you play it at all anymore. It's done. Shooty Game 3 is now. They will make it shut down at a set date, not just online, but even offline modes. And they say this is fine because Shooty Game 3 will have all the content of Shooty Game 2, just updated, obviously at a premium cost, and there it is, right? Or even worse, they could just shut it down because they want to, which is absolutely horrible for preservation efforts. To compare this is the same as a movie production company coming into your home, taking a movie off of your shelf, like the Blu-ray off of your shelf, because they say there's a director's cut coming that will have all that in it and more. You just have to buy it again. That's not okay. So if that's not okay, how is this okay? Right? So when we first use software, there's almost always an agreement known as the end user license agreement that most of us just kind of gloss over, click accept, move on. Within that agreement is language that basically says we are granted a license to use the code, but we're not granted a license to the code itself. And this is where this line's getting blurred. It makes sense to a degree that because the code is proprietary, right? That's the secret recipe to Coke, right? When I buy a Coke, I own the Coke that's in that can. You can't take that away from me. But that doesn't grant me the right to replicate it. And this is what they're saying with video games. You're granted the rights to the video game, but you're not granted the rights to the stuff that makes the video game. Again, makes sense. Because you can't just have that going willy-nilly all around. Because what's to stop me from just, copy, paste, ship it out, and sell it myself? That's piracy, right? Can't do that, right? So it's understandable. Where it fails, though, is the publisher can revoke that agreement without cause, without merit, without compensation. That's wrong, right? Back when the laws around software were written, software was on a CD-ROM or a floppy disk, or it was physical. If the company operated, or if the company stopped supporting it, the community could basically hack it, or in other words, modify the software to operate on modern equipment. We've seen this with games and software many times. The biggest way, or the most common way, is somebody creates an emulator that basically mimics the runtime environment that was intended for that software, and it acts as like a bridge in between the old version of the runtime environment to the new version, right? So when you have older computers that only had like one core processors and things like that, software runs completely different on those than what they do on a modern 64-bit computer or whatever it may be. 64-bit, like 8-core processors are completely different cans of worms, and an emulator is a bridge in between those that allows it to go, hey, instead of doing that, do this, but we're going to mimic the situation, and mimics RAM and things like that. Obviously the emulator is significantly more above board as the laws sit right now than the first, but in the name of preserving content, as far as I'm concerned, either is acceptable. And the reason why is, like, this is you don't just go, what, we invented new paper, so we're going to take all these books and burn them. But yet they do that with games. That's so wrong. When these methods are deployed, the publisher isn't losing money. Like when we emulate something on modern equipment, the publisher isn't losing money. The publisher is instead missing out on potential earnings. That is fundamentally different. The publisher is making an active decision not to support this thing, so the community is going, we're going to support it instead. That is completely different than just going, hey, we're going to steal it and launch it on this stuff, right? One indicates a crime, the other one indicates poor business decisions, or just business decisions that might not be viable, understandably. right? In the modern era, however, with digital distribution being paramount and access to software being protected in the name of corporate greed, there needs to be a shift in expectations to protect the consumer. This also applies to films, television shows, and music. There also needs to be protection for publishers as technology evolves. All these things are true, right? If publishers aren't making money, they're not making more content. We're getting shortchanged on content. The industry suffers. Our enjoyment suffers. The whole thing fails, right? There needs to be money being made. That I think everybody can agree on. That's how an economy works. So there needs to be some protections to them, but the tie shouldn't go to them, right? So kind of, bullet point thoughts here on things that need to change or how we change them. And I'm going to give you some reasons behind that. Content can be sold and distributed digitally or physically. I don't think that's a disagreement there at all. Content can be delisted. Whatever reason you want, you can delist it, right? The rights are expired. It's no longer viable to sell in physical, server space low, whatever it is. Content can be in a subscription service and be exclusive to that service for an agreed time, whatever that time is, right? But once that exclusive time passes, and I think that that agreed time there needs to be a legislative limit on that. It must be available for distribution by other means. This is not to say like I want PlayStation games available on Xbox or Xbox games available on PlayStation. That's not what this is about. This is like, let's imagine a world where a game launches exclusively in Game Pass. It's not available for sale on Xbox. Nintendo does this with like F-Zero 99, for example. It's only available for Nintendo Switch Online members, right? It's not available anywhere else. So that's more what I'm saying is it just needs to be available for purchase elsewhere on that same hardware. When it comes to like media other than software, I think subscription providers that are also owners of content like House of Cards and Netflix have that arrangement. Reacher and Amazon Prime, for example, must, after a duration of no longer than like, let's say 12 months, but an agreed upon negotiated timeline, make that content available for permanent purchase via storefront. And I think that makes total sense. If I want to own the thing, I shouldn't have to be forced into subscribing to something forever for it. Have that exclusive period. Let us buy it later. And as long as it follows all those rules, there you go. And also, I don't think like when we're talking like subscription stuff, I don't think, there's special microtransactions, sometimes flair and bonuses that go to subscribers. That doesn't necessarily need to be available for purchase. Like I'm saying, like you can recognize people for being a subscriber or being a founding supporter, whatever it is. You can do all those things. That's different. Access to portions of content like online services, like I said, you can officially unsupport them after a set duration. Again, the industry needs to come up with an agreed upon duration. I say 36 months seems fair, but a study definitely should be completed to determine an appropriate length of time. As long as they provide adequate official notice from the publisher, like in game. So when I boot up that game, it goes like, hey, just on an FYI, on May 24th, we're going to stop supporting this game online. That's totally fine in my books. Before that, there's an issue, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. Content can be removed from subscription models with adequate official notice from the distributor. Again, these games are leaving Game Pass. We get that message once a month. We know what's leaving. It's there, right? But content that is being paid for explicitly needs to stay available for access in perpetuity in that format it was sold in, whether it's DVD, MP4, MP3, whatever, to run in that runtime environment. So if it's an executable that's designed for Windows 3.1, it needs to work in Windows 3.1 forever. Okay. I'm not saying you need to, take a game that was made for the PlayStation 3 and then, okay, now it works on PlayStation 4. Now it works on the PlayStation 5. Now it works on the PlayStation 6, right? You don't need to do that. That's different. I'm saying if it's on the PS3 and it was on the PS3, I should always have access to it. I paid for it. It's mine, not yours. You can't take it away. Um, Emulation is for preservation. Current runtimes, meaning the latest commercially available runtime environment, for example, PlayStation 5, should be protected. I get that. Abandoned runtime environments are not protected. For example, PlayStation 4, right? Or PlayStation 3, provided emulating those runtime environments don't inadvertently provide access to a protected runtime environment. So, like, if I created a PlayStation 4 emulator, it can't allow PlayStation 5 games to work. The protected format, so like in this case, PlayStation 5, is protected to the point of fair use. So if a PlayStation 4 emulator needs to utilize something that is within the PlayStation 5 code to stop PlayStation 5 games from working on it, that is fair and shouldn't be considered a breach of an emulator license. But if the company's no longer shipping these units, they need to, it's, to me, it's considered abandoned. That's when the community can make an emulator that works for it. Private company could do it too, for that matter. To further demonstrate this, if we're talking about movies, I could have a movie on VHS. It's not available on Blu-ray or DVD or whatever. I'm allowed to watch that on my VCR, and I'm allowed to modify that VCR to connect to a modern television. The same's got to be allowed for software. I need to be able to modify the runtime environment in order for that to continue working, right? So to help stop this greed and to stop companies from being taken advantage of certain models unfairly, I think there needs to be some sort of kind of rules and penalties and regulations around this. For example, like if content is delisted with no intention of relisting it, your copyright now has a 24-month timeline. 24 months seems fair to me. After that, piracy becomes distribution. You can't sell it for profit. So it's not like a company can come in and be like, okay, I am going to start selling this game that you stopped making, right? Or stop selling. Yet again, difference. But I can sell it in that same, or I can distribute it in that same state. So I can't relist a PS3 game for PS5, but I can relist a PS3 game that is runs on an emulator, right? Totally different things. The justification for this, in my mind, is vaulting content for later release is something that happens in all these industries, and to me, it's not ethical. It's wrong. And also, if the publisher kind of decided they've made enough money off of it, so we're going to shelf it, right? So there's a bit of a difference. That 24-month buffer needs to be there, right? In order for publishers to change their mind, whatever reason, they renegotiated something, or the community went like, hey, where the hell's Firefly Season 2? Whatever it is, right? There needs to be some of that. If access to portions of content, like the online functionality, is officially revoked sooner than the suggested duration, so remember I said like 36 months before, or without the adequate official notice from the publisher, a refund of the purchase price of the content must be provided in the original form of payment originally made. And it's up to the publisher to do this. It's not up to the consumer to collect it, in my head. Because this is to protect the consumer. If a company just goes, hey, this thing that's mostly online that, 250,000 people are playing every day, we're going to drop support for it because it's just too much effort for us. Now you have to get back that money, right? If you choose to drop a product, it's for a reason, right? This is largely to protect the consumer, because if a product has failed the internal goals or metrics or whatever that is required to maintain that full level of content that is expected by the consumer from their purchase of that content, then they should be compensated. And companies need to be expected to make more realistic goals. So there needs to be a punishment. You didn't make a good decision, company, so therefore you pay this price. You have to get back that money now. And then shareholders are going to be like, hey, what's the better option here? Do we do the riskier thing, or do we do the better thing? Do we spend more time researching how many copies of this we're going to sell and our budgets for it? Stuff like that. It's going to make better products for everyone, right? If access to portions of content, like online servers, are officially revoked after the suggested duration, Unofficial support, for example, community servers, for example, is acceptable and not considered any sort of breach of license or agreement. If somebody in the community decides that the cost to maintain access to online servers is acceptable to them, let them utilize it, and the product lives on. Nobody loses, right? And this does happen in games. There are games that have unofficial servers supported because the fans have decided to continue it on, right? The ability to purchase content and carry over must be made to subscription service users in the event of a product being removed from the service. So, Shooty Game 2 is leaving Game Pass. I need to be given the opportunity to buy that game. Discount or not, I don't care. But given the opportunity to buy that game, and I don't lose any of my progress, it continues on, right? It's the same license. It's the same game continuing on. If a publisher removes content that has been paid for explicitly, the publisher must provide a full refund to the consumer. There's no acceptable reason for that. A good example here was just recently PlayStation said that they were going to remove content from Discovery off of their PlayStation Store library. So people, even though you haven't been able to purchase this content for quite some time, they were going to remove access to it because they failed to come up with an agreement with Discovery on the distribution of it. No, that's theft, right? That to me is theft. Completely wrong. Like, so imagine I have a car, and in that car, the car's made by Toyota, and inside that car is a stereo, and that stereo is made by Denon. And Denon and Toyota fail to make an agreement on continuation of support for that stereo. So Toyota's going to come and take the stereo out of my car? No. Right? So how's this okay? It's not, right? So if you're taking it, give me my money back, full, right? And I go into a definition here in a minute about what a refund is. And it's got to have teeth, or else it's not going to work. If a publisher abandons content, and also no timeline, 10, 20 years, 30 years, whatever, refund. Anyways, if a publisher abandons content by not continuing to provide access to it on updated formats or operating environments, and when formats or operating environments evolve, then they abandon any rights to protection when it comes to consumers accessing the content via emulation. So this kind of goes to what I said. This is for preservation, not for piracy. Provided the publisher is still selling the content on the obsolete format or runtime, then the publisher retains the rights and the copyrights, right? So basically, as long as it's not delisted under that first kind of rule I was talking about, they retain right on the copyright. They just don't really have any option when it comes to emulation, right? So if you're still selling a PlayStation 3 game, I can emulate it. Right? It's an obsolete runtime, but you're still selling it, so I can get it, right? For the purposes of this, I did want to talk about what a full refund is, because my definition of a full refund is probably different than what there is going around. And as I said, it needs to have teeth in it. It needs to have purpose, because the whole concept of this is to go, if you're going to make a bad decision, it's going to cost you, right? You're free to make that bad decision, but it's going to cost you. A full refund is the full and complete refund of the original purchase price of the product, including any taxes, fees, levies, and other charges, plus interest as defined by the national interest rate over the period of time lapsed in the country of purchase. So this involves a lot of work on them. They can't just say, well, we sold this game at, we're based out of Washington State, so the interest rate here is this and that. No. Where it was purchased. So if I purchased the game in Ontario, you got to go by the interest rate and tax rate here, right? There is no deductions or prorating to a full refund. This is a nuclear option, as I said, to deter theft of own content. You can't take this thing away from me because it's going to cost you more than what I gave you for it, right? So that's my concept of what needs to change. Something needs to change, because piracy is going to get rampant. And if piracy gets rampant, then companies don't make money. Companies don't make money, they don't make content. We've been over this, right? So, Mr. Philippe Tremblay, Ubisoft Director of Subscriptions, it isn't the consumer that needs to shift their perspective from owning content. It is the publishers that need to, in your own words, get comfortable not owning your games and instead provide choice for the consumer and understand that there are consequences when choices that are made that covet greed over anything else. That is what needs to change. Um, and digital ownership is a very important thing for preservation. Unfortunately, right now, as it exists, preservation is almost near impossible without what is legally considered piracy. I don't see a lot of companies pursuing that to some degree, but there are companies that are very litigious that will, because they may intend on utilizing sales of that thing down the road, which is like bonkers. So if we lock it in on platform, that's the only way to do it, right? And it gets messy, it gets complicated, but we need to do it. Something needs to happen. And if it's going to happen, it's going to happen out of the EU, and it's going to be messy. Alrighty, so another thing I wanted to talk about is my review of Like a Dragon Gaiden, the man who erased his game. Um, who erased his name. Ah, I said game. So this is up on wellplayedpodcast.blogspot.com as well. But I will go over it here. I've been playing this game for a while. I haven't quite finished it yet because I am still having fun doing some of the side questy stuff, but I'm right at the last section. Like the next thing I do is do the boss battle. So I'm pretty well versed, and like that's all been spoiled for me. So it's I know exactly what's coming next. Hence why I stopped and started working on all the side questy stuff I wanted to do. Pardon me. Our favorite ex Yakuza is back in action again. In an action game again. This time in Like a Dragon. Kazuma Kiryu must take steps to protect those he cares about, which means he once again must dive deep into the Japanese underworld of fighting, gambling, and of course, karaoke. The game starts off feeling exactly how a Like a Dragon, formerly the Yakuza game, should feel, and continues delivering all the way through. Set during the events of Yakuza 7, Like a Dragon, the player navigates Kiryu through his struggles to keep the orphanage and his loved ones safe. Set mostly in Sotenbori, the home of the Omi Alliance, Kiryu fights, gambles, and sings his way through the events of the game. Yeah, it's a Yakuza game. It's exactly that. It has all those things, all those unique experiences, all those little Easter eggs, all those trinkets you got to find, stuff like that. Well, it's somewhat short compared to previous entries in the series. Like a Dragon Gaiden, the man who erased his name delivers all the action that we've come to expect from previous titles, with a heartfelt story and excellent characters. It also has been completely dubbed into English, allowing players to choose between Japanese audio with English subtitles. So you get the original voice of Kiryu, or you get Yang Ye doing the original or doing the new version of Kiryu in a full English version. Like a Dragon Gaiden, the man who erased his name suffers only from a shorter length. The rest of the game is fun and well written, with plenty of characters and activities to keep fans of the series entertained. A little beefier story or maybe something different in gameplay would have easily added a point to the score of this title. So before I get into my kind of final score here of it, let's talk about kind of the things you do in Like a Dragon Guide. Most Yakuza games have like an underworld that you go into, kind of an area where there are no rules, and this is where you get your in this one they call it the castle. In other ones it's just simple as underworld. You access it through the sewers or through that park or whatever it may be, and you go there and you can gamble. There's usually the traditional card games are there, blackjack and poker are there. I think there was one with roulette, if I'm not mistaken. That might have been one of the Judgment games. I can't remember right now. And then there's ones with sorry, I just wanted to change something and I broke my page. And then there's oh, mahjong and tile games and things like that in there as well. So more traditional Japanese games in there. This one, it's called the Castle. It has those, and it has the Fight Club arena where you got to fight your way to the top of the thing. You are forced to do some of this for the campaign, and then the rest of it's kind of left open. But it's super fun to do. You build a team and a roster, so you're kind of borrowing from Like a Dragon, like 7, to do this. It's interesting. There isn't really like the property management mini game or anything like that. Cabarets are actually the cabaret clubs are done really well in this one. So if that's an indication of what the cabaret is going to be like in Infinite Wealth, I'm all for it. So there's that, but there's, as far as like the management thing, your management is done for the Fight Club, for your team there. You got to build up your roster and stuff like that, and it's interesting. It's well done. It's very pretty, like the recreation of, well, it's not called Sotenbori, it's called Dotonbori in real life. But the recreation of the area is very good. The tie-ins are really cool. The branding and stuff like that. It's super good in that way. And it kind of gives us that one last hurrah with Kiru, that if you know what's happening in Infinite Wealth, then you understand the importance of that. And the fans kind of needed that. So there's plenty of cameos as well. Guest, I don't want to say guest stars. I guess I kind of did. Cameos and characters from other Yakuza series games, including Judgment in here, which is, I think, really cool, and nods to other things and stuff like that as well. So it's really good. It's a complete return to form. It had that Yakuza feeling all over it. It's a very lush and beautiful world to explore, all sorts of little things, even though it's a relatively small map, Sotenbori. There's all sorts of little things to find, and side quests and activities to do, which are fun, little Easter eggs as well. The cons, it's short. It is a short game. The skill tree isn't very optimized, I found, for hardcore fans, which I would call myself in. Skill tree needs, well, it's not even really a tree. It's just you unlock skills, and it's not as detailed as it should be. And it's lacking that something new, that something interesting that each game before has brought to it. Whether it's there was the cab mode in the one, there's the property management, there was the business management in Yakuza 7. There's all these things, and they were all kind of cool, unique takes on something. And this one doesn't really have that per se. I guess it kind of does with climbing the ranks needed at the castle, but it's still not quite there with it. So as I say, if it had just a little bit more of that, it would probably get an extra point. As it sits right now, I'm scoring it 7.5 out of 10. I'm calling it short, but still good. And I've reviewed this on the Xbox Series X and S and on my PC. So it's been a fun time playing it. It is available in Game Pass. So if you're a subscriber, go get it. Give it a try. I've been asked a few times, what is the proper entry point to the Yakuza series for a fan, or for somebody who hasn't played any of them and wants to try them? The proper entry point is whatever one is in front of you right now that you can get your hands on. So in this case, I would say this game or Infinite Wealth is coming. It will fill in the blanks largely for you, and then you'll be like, this is cool, I want to learn more. And then what you do is you go play Yakuza 0 and work your way all the way up. And that is fun. It's very fun, cool experience. And then make sure you open your Wikipedia up and go, okay, so I got to play these games. And then I play Judgment. And then I play this game. Then I play Judgment 2. And then I play Like a Dragon Gaiden. And then there's also Like a Dragon Ishin, which is a period piece. It has nothing to do with the Yakuza universe that we're in, but it's the same gameplay, and they utilize the character models as different characters, which was fun. So, and that came out a year ago. So it's been a good little period for these things. let's see if it continues. Anyways, I think that is probably about it for this week. Um, yeah, yeah. I don't think there's anything really more I wanted to talk about. I could talk a bit about, I guess, what I've been playing, but I kind of inadvertently already did. Uh, I've been playing Wolfenstein: The New Order. I've been playing this game, Yakuza, or sorry, Like a Dragon Gaiden, the man who erased his name, and some Call of Duty still. Season 1 Reloaded was this past week, so I've been into that. Nailed the boys. Uh, the 2 boys events are done already for me. Yeah, I'm just waiting for that new ranks. I'm stuck at 250. So I'm waiting for them to unlock more ranks and things like that, and away we go. Um, there was something else I've been playing. Oh, I finished the Talos Principle and its DLC, the original one. I haven't done 2 yet, but I finally finished it, and that was good. And I've been playing a lot of Kerbal Space Program, which math. It's got lots of math in it, but it's fun. And the Bus Simulator 21. I've been playing that because I like boring worky games, and that is a perfect boring worky game for me. Although it keeps on crashing, probably because I have too many bus routes going at once, and the game's just like, nope, not optimized for that. So, anyways, I guess that's about it. You can find more from us on Twitter by following at Amarren Studios. That is AMARREN STUDIOS, or on YouTube. Our link is in the audio description of the show, or you can follow us audio. The link for that is in the YouTube description on the show. You can find us on Spotify, Apple, Google, wherever you find your pods. I've been Warren. You've been the best audience I could ever ask for. Thank you for joining me, and see you next time. Goodbye. Well Played podcast is presented by Amarren Studios and W Energy. Use code WELLPLAYED at w.gg to get 10% off.